My name is Karen Felton. I'm on the Board of Stroke Recovery. I'm the Treasurer. And I would like to introduce the panel to you, who is going to be the next session. So this is the Stroke Survivors panel. We have at the end Kimone Haddon, who is, hold on, this is out of order, so sorry, I'll have to just go. She's from the Bega Stroke Recovery Club, located on the beautiful South Coast. We have Julie Wright, who is from North Illawarra Club, and that's our oldest club located in Wollongong. We have Ava, who is from the Wyong Stroke Recovery Club, or the Wise Guys from the Central Coast. We have Colin from Fairfield Stroke Recovery Club, that's a new club in Western Sydney. And we have Simon, who is from the Penrith Stroke Recovery Club, located on the spectacular Nepean River in Western Sydney. So now I need to do my introduction. I've gone ahead of everything. At every event, the association organises an essential component of sharing stroke survivors' stories of their personal experience of this devastating, life-changing event. Today, we are honoured to have our panel here, and they are people from our stroke recovery clubs located in various areas of New South Wales to share the ups and downs of their lives over the years, and they have survived and lived with the consequences of stroke. The panel will be facilitated by our CEO of Stroke Recovery Association, Michelle Sharkey, OAM, who, through her many years of working with our stroke recovery clubs, has had the privilege to get to know most of our members and their stories through her many visits, lunches and morning teas. So I've introduced your panel to you, so enjoy.
Thank you, Karen, and welcome everybody on the panel. It's a privilege to be able to facilitate our discussion this afternoon, or this morning. It gets into this afternoon. So the Stroke Survivors panel has always been a real key to our conferences, because it's really important that people learn from each other as well as understand the differences that stroke cause, but connect with the similarities, as Judith said in her speech this morning. So I'm going to ask the panel a number of questions, and they're going to give me a very short answer, because I've already given the lecture about what will happen if they go too long. Okay? So first of all, I'm going to ask each of them if they wouldn't mind giving me just a little bit of a background of themselves. So I'll start with Kimone down the other end, if she wouldn't mind just giving me a little bit of a background, what was happening when you had your stroke, what age you were, where you were at in your life, and how you experienced your stroke and what your symptoms were.
Hi, I'm Kimone. I had my first stroke in Melbourne, another one in 2016 while I was in Bega, and another one in June 19. Always busy, full-time work. The first stroke, I had a 5-year-old son, and he found me. While I was sitting on the toilet, I blacked out. While I was sitting on the toilet, I felt dizzy and blacked out. I tried to get up, but my right side wasn't working. With the help of my great uncle, they rang the ambulance. I think I fell down about 7:30, and I think the ambulance guys come at 9:00. So, yeah.
And you got straight to hospital. Which hospital in Melbourne did they take you to?
Monash.
Monash Hospital down there. Excellent, excellent. And who was it that recognised you were having a stroke? Was it you?
I don't know.
You don't know. Fair enough, and that's often the case, isn't it? It is. Okay, going on to Julia.
Am I? Yeah.
You're up. You should be on.
I wasn't sure. I had my stroke back in 91. I was 40 years of age. At that stage I was working full-time, living with my husband and my daughter. Basically I was on a morning shift. I got up to go to the shower and go to work, and the next thing I remember being on the bedroom floor because my husband, he realised I put the wrong switch on when I went into the ensuite, and he called me and there was no response, so he pulled me out onto the bedroom floor, threw a blanket over me, and I thought I was talking to him, and he said I was just making gargling sort of noises, and he said there was some drooping in my mouth. He thought it was a stroke straight off. He called the ambulance, and I'm not sure how quick they were before they were there, but because of that time of the morning, it was about 4:30, 5 o'clock, they were there pretty quick, and they agreed with him. At that stage, I don't remember them putting me on the stretcher, but I remember them pushing the stretcher out into the ambulance. Sometime between then and the time I got to Sutherland Hospital, and it's probably about a half-hour drive, and I'd regained my speech and I was giving them my details, etc.
Right.
Anyway, I got to the hospital, and at that stage they had told him what they thought, and so they was going to start doing tests and that sort of thing. And
So your stroke was back in 1991, before stroke units were really introduced in Australia.
that's right, yeah.
So you went to Sutherland Hospital and got treated there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then they were going to do some sort of scans and what have you. And as far as symptoms, prior to the stroke, I had no symptoms to the best of my knowledge.
Right. Okay.
I'll just give you a little bit of my background. Prior to the stroke, I was probably about 10 kilos lighter than what I am now. Blood pressure was 110/70. Cholesterol was sometimes between 1 and 2. So, and even the doctors today still can't tell me why
Why you had the stroke. Yeah. Interesting.
Going back into the hospital, they just thought, well, because what the ambos had told them, and I'm presuming this, that they thought I'll have to do some sort of tests and scans.
And so that was really even before any treatments were really available, which is an interesting time.
That's right. Yeah, it was just a matter of
Okay.
and because at some stage between when I had the first, eventually I was told that I had a series of TIAs and that I only had a minor stroke.
Right.
When I went to another neurologist 10 years later, but something my daughter insisted I do. One of the things, he sent me for an MRI. MRIs had just come into Australia, but I didn't get one. And he said, did you bring the MRI? I said, I haven't had one, so he sent me one. And the first thing when I came back from that, he said to me, Mrs. Wright, you said you had a minor stroke. I said, well, that's what they told me at the hospital. He said, you had a major stroke.
Yeah.
1/3 of the brain is just non-operational anymore. But,
Okay.
that's about it for the moment.
All right, Julie, thank you. We'll move on to Ava. Just a little bit about yourself and your stroke, love.
Okay, I had my stroke when I was 71 in 2014, and my story is quite different from everyone else, and I just want to say I'm very thankful to God for directing me through a time that I didn't know what was happening. And we were in Bali, and we had attended my nephew's wedding, and we were at the last day, and we were in a resort, and we had our breakfast, and we were back in our room, and just did our devotions, and we're just getting ready for the pool, and I felt strange in my face, and I just said to Ralph, oh, something's wrong with my face. Oh, I'm as beautiful as ever, he said. Anyway, then I did the stats, so hands in the air, and touched my toes and everything, and I'm all right. And anyway, I got dressed for the pool, and then I felt strange, but I'd had a friend who had Bell's palsy about 6 months earlier, so I self-diagnosed and decided that what I had was Bell's palsy. And so then Ralph said, will I call the doctor? I said, no, Bell's palsy, we're going home tonight. Tomorrow morning we'll go to the doctor. And anyway, so that's what we did. And all I did that day was sit under the big tree near the pool. I didn't even go swimming. I felt very tired. And just had a nice quiet day. Went to go to the airport, terrible airport. My bags got searched twice. and there were no seats to sit, so I just sat on a case, and I just felt terrible. But then I thought, anyway, no. Then we waited, and as we had a meal before the aeroplane flight was 10:30, so it happened at 10 o'clock in the morning. Now it's 10:30, and we're having a bite to eat, and there was a family just near us, and the man just looked at me and he said, Ralph explained I wasn't well, and he said, it could be a stroke. I said, I don't know what a stroke is. I just feel funny in my face. And I said, well, moving everything. And so, but that was the first word I'd heard, a stroke. Anyway, we got the plane. We live at Central Coast, and we were going to catch the train from Central to Gosford. But then when we got there at 6:30 in the morning, and on the thing was no trains, we had to catch the coach, a bus, up the hill, pull my suitcase, did all that, got in the bus, and then at a certain point I said to Ralph, ring the surgery so we can get an appointment. They finish at 11. And so Ralph did, and then the secretary said, put Ava on. So I just was speaking to her, and then she said, Ava, what you do is you go straight to hospital. Just then we got a North Sydney hospital sign, and the bus driver was aware because we're sitting there, and he said, would you like me to take you to the hospital? I said, no, I've just come all the way from Bali. I'm going home to Gosford. I'll go to Gosford Hospital. Again, when we came to Hornsby hospital sign, the bus driver again said, are you sure you wouldn't like me to drop you at this hospital? And I just said, no, I'm doing fine. Stroke hadn't come back into my mind at all. I just had a very amazing peace. And then we got on the expressway. My husband rang our daughter-in-law. She happens to be a nurse who was working in the stroke ward. And so Ralph just said, Mum's had got something going on, and we were in the bus instead of a train. She said, I'll meet you. As soon as she saw me, she said, oh, Mum, you've had a stroke. That was the real, I thought, dear, what's a stroke? She went through the back, we got in very quickly at the emergency, and I had the tests, etc. And at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, yes, I'd had a stroke, and I don't know what sort, but anyway, there's a little clot just there. Oh.
So you broke every rule, didn't you?
Well, I didn't have a rule.
One. You didn't.
I'd just like to say this. What you don't know, you don't know. And then when they asked me to do all the things, everything that I had I was in the hospital, and the physio came, the speech therapist came, and all of those things. And when I went to that room with the steps, and I got to tick, everything's fine. Except, of course, I had a speech impairment, and I also had issues with swallowing, and I didn't realise that you breathe, swallow, and talk all at the same time. But I had problems in that I was dribbling, and I went to speak, and my words were different. When I get stressed like I am now, the words start to... I'm still suffering from the same thing. I get words and they're a little bit slower to come out and things like that. But in turn, the speech, the physio gave the tick, so that was done. The speech therapist came back and I had to do words, and I was in a ward with 3 men. So I'm in the stroke ward at Gosford Hospital with 3 men.
I might just stop you there, and we'll go on to that part in just a second. So I might go on to Colin, but I just want to summarise what it was that we think you did wrong there. And the health professionals in the room can help me out. 1, you ignored the first symptom and you didn't get yourself to medical attention. 2, you ignored the second time somebody said that you thought you were having a stroke. And 3, you went past 1 hospital without going to seek assistance. And then 4, you went past another hospital without seeking assistance. But the big thing was you didn't call an ambulance at any time. So I'm just giving a shout out to our ambulance colleagues down the back, because that's your first call to call. Okay, I might go on to Colin now. And Colin, if you just give a brief overview of yours.
I stroked in 2010. I was a 49-year-old optometrist living with my wife and teenage son doing the HSC. No real problems, perhaps slightly stressed like everyone else in this room. 0 risk factors. Excessively fit. I had an uncharacteristic severely headache the night before, drove to work on M4, saw 1 patient and then stroked.
Okay. And who recognised your stroke and which hospital did you go to?
I went to Nepean, that was the closest one with neuro support, and I recognised the stroke. I had fast. I couldn't drink water without spilling. Speech was slurred. Left arm gave up. Sat slumped to the left. Tried to get up. Walked in small circles until collapsed. Worked out that I'd lost 25% of the visual field pretty quickly. And I wanted to get a retinal photo naturally, being an optometrist, because I was fairly sure I had pretty spectacular optic nerve swelling. But I got no photo because I could get off the floor.
So who recognised your stroke?
Oh, I did.
Colin? You did?
Yeah.
And did you call an ambulance?
My receptionist did, and I made her come in the ambulance because my speech was just rubbish.
Right. So you won up on Ava?
Yeah.
Okay.
I got to Nepean within 30 minutes. They were great.
Excellent. Excellent. And did you get access to TPA at
Yes,
Nepean?
I had TPA. I was classified as a malignant stroke, malignant ischemic, and TPA'd straight away.
Right. Excellent.
But I wasn't eligible for basket clock retrieval
Retrieval.
due to the convoluted nature of the middle cerebral artery. They couldn't get to it.
Right. Okay. Alrighty. I might go on to you, Simon.
Sure.
So your stroke occurred, you're probably the youngest, not the youngest, but you're probably the latest stroke. How about I put it that way? Yep.
Yeah, that sounds good. So I had my stroke in 2022, 2 years ago, but I'll just give a prelude to that, just leading up to it. I had a major heart attack 3 years ago, and how I ended up in hospital where I had my stroke was, just to follow on from a comment the lady made before about the previous presentation, I'll tell you why people don't take their medication, because they're bloody idiots like me. It's true. That's why I ended up with this. I'm a diabetic. I've been diabetic for 30 years, and I just thought it'd just go away, and I ignored it. It doesn't go away. You must look after your health. You must. If you get nothing else out of this conference, take it home. Look after your health. Don't be a fool like me.
So were you at work when you had your stroke?
Yes, I work full time. Had a family, and everything was going on great. But I ended up in Nepean Hospital because through me not looking after my diabetes, I got gangrene on my left leg. And I was in Nepean Hospital, and I was on very strong antibiotics, and I got discharged. But then I had to go back in because I was seeing community nurses, but the treatment wasn't strong enough. So I had to go down to Nepean Hospital. I was there for 15 minutes, and he said, "We're going to take your leg off." So that was a nice surprise on a Sunday afternoon on Anzac Day, 2022. And when I was recovering from my amputation is when I had my stroke. I was on the ward, and my wife was one side, my nurse was another, and they said, "Are you okay?" I said, "Yeah, why?" And they said, "Oh, you just don't look right." So about, I don't know, a couple of minutes later, I think it's hard to remember, about 20 nurses and doctors come running in, and I said, "Okay, what's going on?" Because they started asking all those questions: where are you, what's your name, what year is it, etc., etc. And they said, "Oh, we think you've had a stroke." I said, "I haven't had a stroke." I said, "Strokes are for old men, not for me." And how stupid that was. And they sent me downstairs to level 2 at Nepean, and I'd done the test, and I come back. I had a massive stroke at the back of my brain, apparently, my basal ganglia. And I didn't have any symptoms whatsoever. I had nothing physical, nothing emotional. I had no symptoms at all.
Okay.
So when they said that, I thought, no, I haven't had a stroke, because I've heard, you see things on TV, you think you have a stroke, you fall over and all that sort of stuff. That wasn't me, because I was laying on the ward, on the bed. I didn't even know I had a stroke. Never heard of one, didn't know what it was. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, so just to summarise you all, 2 had a stroke while they were at home, when their family recognised it. 1 had one while at work. 1 had one while they were in a hospital having another medical procedure.
Yep.
And Ava got the gold star for having one while on holiday. Okay. So it just... That's right, and doesn't know how to call an ambulance. So again, strokes can occur at any time, anywhere, and it's how we recognise it and how we get assistance really quickly is the key.
Yep.
So going on to the next question, the treatment you received in hospital. I'll start with you because I think you get the gold star for this one.
Sure.
So if you'd like to give us just a little bit of background of the care you got in Nepean.
Nepean Hospital was excellent. There wasn't a stroke ward built yet. There's 2 new towers there now, and there's a dedicated stroke ward there. I was on the rehab ward, but they were fantastic. I can't speak highly enough of them. Nurses are angels. But it's pretty much, I don't know, I can't remember how long after I'd seen a speech therapist, because I, like yourself, I couldn't swallow, I couldn't eat, and I had to drink through a straw, so I had to change my diet to have mushy food, and because I couldn't swallow, I had nothing really wrong with my speech, but just the swallowing, the eating, the drinking, and I had that for, I don't know, I think a couple of weeks or something, and then I had intense physio and intense OT, and I had it on the weekends as well, so I was very lucky.
Excellent,
Yeah.
excellent. Colin, and your treatment while at Nepean, because you were at Nepean
I was
as
in
well.
the pen also. Intracranial pressure was through the roof, hence the headache. I had 2 decompression craniectomies, so skull out, frozen.
Okay.
And then after 10 days, discharged to a small private rehab facility in Westmead. I wore a protective helmet for full time for 5 months. And I was basically hemiplegic when I arrived. Inpatient for 5.5 months. Walked in 3.5. Cranioplasty in 5 months, so skull back in. Discharged to home. 7 years outpatient rehab. 13 years, 3 monthly Botox on the hand, long term, which has just failed. I've had a muscle operation on the right hand. I'm due for another.
Excellent. And the treatment you received was a combination of in a public hospital for the acute, and then you went to a private.
Yeah, that's right. Thanks, NIB.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. All right, Ava, where did you get your treatment, love?
I didn't have any.
Okay.
I was in hospital, and as I said, I got there on the Saturday afternoon, and it was diagnosed at 3 o'clock that it was a stroke, and then I was taken to a ward, and a little while later the physio came, and we went to the room where they had the steps and everything, and I did everything that they asked me to do. They had a test on my arm. I was left-sided affected, and my arms and my strength was about 62, and then I went up steps, did all of those things, back to the room, and then a little while later, a speech therapist came, and she did some talking, and then she gave me something to read, and then she left me with some papers and said, and I have to say, I only heard what I wanted to hear. And so she said to practice the words regularly, but she had said, and I didn't hear that, and that was I was to do it loud so that the people in the ward could hear it. So I did the words, but I didn't do that bit. And then the next day when she walked in, she said, "Okay, fellas, how is Ava going with her speech?" And the one over there said, "What was that? Huh?" And then the other one said, didn't hear anything, but then I'm deaf. And then the other one said something else. And then she just said to me, "Ava, were you doing them aloud?" And I said, I didn't have a very good voice. And I just said, I didn't know I had to do that. So then when I did do that, I realised when I did it just in my brain, the sound wasn't there. And I didn't realise that there were certain words that I wasn't quite able to say. And so as I started to, I'm very obedient, and I did do it louder, but they'd say I can't hear, so I had to do it louder. And then I did hear in my own self, there were some words that I just couldn't get. And so
the main deficit you were left with was basically your speech.
And also during that time was when I realised I'd say the word, and then a deep breath, and I'd say the next word. So I couldn't do it. I'm talking as breathing.
And the breathing at the same time.
And she picked that up, and she said that's what we'll be working at. And I was there while I was in hospital.
And do you know if you were in the stroke unit at Gosford?
Sorry?
Were you in the stroke
ward.
unit? You were.
I was in the stroke
Okay.
ward with 3 men.
And did you go from a stroke unit to a rehab centre then?
No,
or
no,
you
I
just went home?
I was ready to go. They said I could go home on Monday or Tuesday, but I had to wait for the brain scan. But I'd be ready for it on the Tuesday, and then they'd come in and say, "I'm so sorry, someone else has had to come in," and they're doing that. And they did that the next day and the next day. And I finally had it on Friday morning, and I went home Friday afternoon.
So basically from the time you had your stroke to the time you went home was around about a week. Would that be correct? Excellent.
Yeah, got home on Friday afternoon. I had the stroke on the Friday in Bali.
In Bali, there you go. So from somebody going from quite an extensive time in hospital, we've got now somebody who spent a very short time in hospital. Okay, and we'll come back to that point, I think, in a minute. Julie, would you like to give your ideas of what happened with you when you were getting your treatment in hospital and in rehab, please?
I laugh at rehab. But anyway,
Just closer to the mouth with the mic.
as you mentioned earlier, I probably had my stroke before there was much, the hospitals didn't know a lot about stroke and that sort of thing. As I said earlier, that they decided I should have some scans. And somewhere within the first 4 or 5 hours where I was actually talking to the ambos and to the people in the hospital. And for ladies, should you have a stroke, please make sure your husband puts something in, doesn't send you home into the hospital naked, which mine did. And he was at home bringing people that had to be told. My girlfriend got there earlier than anybody else, and I said, I need you to go to the toilet. She said, well, get up and go. I said, I'm stark naked under this blanket. So just be careful of that, ladies. But other than that, I can't remember if it was before or after I had the scans. I then my speech started to deteriorate dramatically.
Okay, so your stroke extended while you were in hospital?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they said it was a series of TIAs. I'm not sure whether it was a series of TIAs or what it was. As I said earlier, that the second neurologist I went 10 years later. He told
And
me
the treatment now, as to back then, when you started to get more small strokes, would be quite extensively different.
Oh, sure it would be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
indeed.
And also to the actual, I think they call him a VMO.
Yep, visiting medical officer.
Yep.
Yep.
He wasn't very nice.
He wasn't very nice.
Well, I wouldn't say he had a bad bedside manner, a bad bedside manner. I'd say he had no bedside manner.
Okay.
Whenever I don't ever really coming in and spoke to me once. He didn't even address me by my name. He just walked in and said, you've had a stroke. I thought it was, well, I say that. I don't know whether I thought it was funny or not, but I laughed.
Yeah.
My husband and my daughter were in the room, and one of them asked him a particular question, that of what type of stroke it was. And I remember he turned around, and I think he looked down his nose at them, but he didn't even acknowledge that. He just turned around and walked out. He didn't acknowledge that they were there, and didn't acknowledge the question.
Okay. I'm standing up for my stroke colleagues now, and that would have been changed now too, one would hope.
Yeah.
Because I think back then it was one of those things with stroke where we were still very much in that hierarchical medical system where the VMO was the important person in the world.
That's right, yeah. As I think I mentioned later on that after the doctor told me that I had a major stroke. I was in hospital for 7 to 10 days, and
And did you go off to rehab?
I spent 10 minutes with a speech pathologist.
Sorry, you spent
10
10
minutes
minutes
with
with
a speech pathologist.
Okay, so
That
your
was it.
main deficit as a result of your stroke was your speech as well?
Speech, writing.
Writing?
I used to be an avid reader, and I can read, but I don't sit down and read a book like I used to.
Right,
Yeah.
so concentration and spending a lot of time doing one particular task,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. Okay, all right, we might go on to Kimone, and because you've had 3 strokes, and they probably got, your treatment is probably different for all 3.
Yes, because
Up near your mouth.
the first stroke, they said I had hypertension and I was on the pill. Sorry, that's garbage. My blood pressure is perfect, and I was on the pill because my doctor recommended it. I was in my hospital for 11 days, Kingston Rehab Hospital for a month. I had rehab in the home about a month, and I community rehab for 8 months and back to work.
Right.
Maybe 4 months back to work on reduced.
Hours.
Yeah.
Okay. And you still, and your main deficits as a result of your stroke were your speech?
Yes. my second stroke was a valve in my heart.
Right.
So I had a PFO. I had it since I was born, and they didn't pick it up at Monash Hospital. So the third stroke, I had cluster migraines, so they took me off aspirin and have another medication.
Okay. And you've managed to continue working in some shape or form since through all of your strokes?
Yep.
Excellent. Good one. Okay. So going on from that theme, how has the stroke changed your life?
I have right-sided weakness, but I'm always doing exercises. I have walk 5 times a week. I have a personal trainer. I don't have speech therapists because I volunteer at the number of organisations and I speak to them.
Yeah. Okay. So you practice your speech?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And never give up and never say never.
Yes.
I'm passionate about assisting people, and I'm changing my mindset about my family and leisure life. My way or the highway, I'm working on that too.
So have your symptoms and the deficits you've been left with post-stroke, have they improved over time?
Yes.
Okay. And that's because of your exercise and your...
And sleeping right, exercise, good diet, drinking lots of water, yeah.
Any alcohol?
No.
Okay. No, okay.
And I
just
didn't
checking.
smoke either.
Yep.
So,
And you spend more time with your family?
yeah.
Okay, and walk a lot more. I see photos of you and your dog.
Thank
Very
you.
unhealthy hours of the morning, I might add. So that's cool. Excellent. Julie, how has it changed your life, and have your deficits improved?
When I left the hospital, as I say, I could have had about 6 words that I could say. Reading and writing were dreadful. The writing, I just remember being in the hospital and asking the lady who served the meals what month it was. I think it was September. I just know it was a long month. And I asked her to write it down for me. And for some unknown reason at the back of my mind, I had to realise I might not be able to write again. It's about the only time I've ever thought about that sort of thing in hospital. And I tried to write. But my handwriting now, if I was to write 3 or 4 sentences, by the end of it I wouldn't be able to even read it myself.
Right.
This piece of paper here, you'll see I typed my answers into this.
Okay, so you've changed from writing to typing.
Yes.
You've compensated for the
Yeah,
issues
that's
of your
right.
stroke.
Going back, improving, speech yes, writing yes, but not very good. And as I said earlier, I don't read like I used to. As far as work, and that took me 2 years before I could return to work. It was a different position that I was when I had the stroke.
So was it a modified position that you went back to?
It wasn't to the same position. I was working for ANZ Air Freight, and some of it you had to be really, really and truly on the ball. I was doing dangerous goods and things like that.
Right.
And I still reckon I could do some dangerous goods at other people.
Right.
I know this, I could. But it was just different things that you had to be really on the ball. And when I say that, I mean I'd have a driver with a whole heap of trolleys that had to be out of this particular plane, and if it had dangerous goods on it, he should not have the dangerous goods on that trolley.
Right.
There had to be a dangerous goods person that went out to the plane, put it on the plane, give it up to the pilot, and have the pilot approve it. And so just things like that.
Yep.
had
And
to
were
be
you
more on
able
the
to
ball.
realise that for yourself, that you couldn't do exactly what you did before, or did somebody
No,
sort of...
I
sit you
know, I
down?
knew.
You realised it?
Yeah, I knew that.
Okay.
But also too, I was very much involved with phone work and things like that. And I actually went back to ANZ Air Freight through an employment agency. and that probably helped with improving my speech because I was back on the phones to a certain extent.
Okay.
But going back to what probably... I've lost the plot. But what probably helped me, probably about 2 months after I had the stroke, I was coming up towards Christmas and I realised I had to do some Christmas shopping. And I'll go down to the wilderness shop at Wollongong and try and buy some presents. I went down about 4 or 5 times and it was never open. It was only manned by volunteers. Anyway, so I found out where the key was, and so I thought, okay, well, I'll come and open the shop as often as I can get down there. I had a neighbour who made herself my de facto carer.
Yep.
Every time I walked down to the station, she'd be down behind me.
Checking you out, just checking you were safe.
Well, no, she went with me. She got on the bus, she got on the train with me, went down to the wilderness shop, and
Right.
it was interesting because I said I didn't have a lot of speech.
Yep.
And she had a speech impediment, but it was interesting. She could understand everything I was trying to say, and she could relay it to the customers.
Business as well.
And because I was there and I had to do some speaking, but also interacting with people, which I probably wouldn't have if I hadn't have gone to the shop.
Shops.
And towards the end there, and I mentioned to a few people at this conference, at the end there I was doing phone orders, and I wasn't really aware of it until talking to people here, that the people at the other end of the phone must have been so patient with me with trying to put these orders, because it must have been really confusing for them. Okay. But it was because I was doing that and trying to do that it worked.
That it worked.
Helped,
Excellent. Yeah. Going on to you, Ava, how has your life changed as a result of the stroke, and how have your deficits improved over the time since?
Okay, so after I left hospital, as I left the hospital, I was given a envelope with a book in it, and I was told to go and see the neurologist in 6 weeks' time, and so we did make that appointment. And during that time, there was no rehab or anything, and I just was very tired, and I had some issues, and I thought, and I'll just share them because I've never talked about them really, and that is that I had a fat tongue, and I realised that as I talked, that's where some of the areas of difficulty were. I was going to ask all these things, of course, when I see the neurologist, but anyway, and I had tongue problems, and I had, I could swallow, I could do drinking and everything was all right, but then I also had areas where I did some texting on my phone, and I had a group of friends, and during that 6 weeks, they met with me three times. They'd invite me for coffee, and I'd say yes, I'd come, but I wouldn't show, and then they'd come and pick me up. And I realised, they said to me, are you aware that your texting is not making sense? So they'd say what it was, and I'd read it, and then they'd say, but that's not what you've written. But I was reading what I'd written. And then one of them I didn't register at the time, but I heard one say, do you realise she's got every third or fourth word back to front? And now at that time, I didn't register that. But as time went on, apparently that's what I was doing. And I was reading, I read right. But when I was writing, I'd do it. So I had, when I saw the neurologist, he said I had a scrambled brain. And he said that my had changed from 64 and it was now 97. So I was pretty strong again, and that was good. And then he said to me, and Mrs. de Joux, you have had a remarkable recovery. That's all I heard, by the way, but he went on with more. And so, of course, when I went home, I didn't do anything. I didn't do very much walking. I didn't do anything very much except my speech thing. And I had speech therapists come once a week, and I did well.
Mm-hmm. And you did everything they told you?
And what?
And you did everything the speech therapist told you?
I was doing it loud, and I was on my own, and I could do it. And I did in front of the mirror as well.
Oh,
it looked a bit funny,
yes,
but I did do that. And I'm very determined, and I didn't have to do anything else. And so he did say, and I'd like you to go and just see your GP now. So I did see the GP, and the GP said, just keep doing what you're doing. And oh, that's right. And then I read the book from the hospital.
It's always good to read the book from the hospital, don't you think?
Well,
yes.
It was interesting because I really didn't know what was going on. I've had a stroke, but I'm all right. And then I read the book, and then I have to just say, the last page really got me. And that said, if you're having any areas of struggle, there was a phone number, and it was in January. And I rang the phone number, and it was the association. And I got the message bank. I just had to leave my name and phone number.
Did we ring you back?
It was holidays. It was January. It was closed, I think. No, I just can't remember.
I'm sure I did.
And I do remember this. I did get a call, and it must have been from that. And it was just to say that there was a group meeting, and they were the wise guys. And I thought, oh, I don't want to join no wise guys. So I did go. I did ring them, and then they told me where they met. And then I just say, I went to the meeting. Ralph didn't come with me, and I saw the effects of stroke. I was shocked. I didn't realise. I was comparing myself, and I didn't realise what stroke had done to some people. And then I made it, oh, that's right. Then one person came to me and they said, we go for lunch now, would you like to join us? I'd already decided I was never going to go back there. And then as I went to the car, another man came and he just said, Ava, I'd like to just say something to you if I may. I've had a stroke and you remind me a little bit of me. And I looked at him and I said, there's nothing wrong with him, but there's nothing wrong with me either. So I listened. And then he invited me to ask Ralph if he could talk to Ralph. And then he did. He phoned that evening. And the thing that he said to Ralph was, it may not be something that Ava needs at this time, or it may be. It would be good if she was to come. And then, but the thing I'd like to say to you is, my wife, who is my carer, is the one who benefits a lot as well. And so maybe, and I think it was when we went to the next stroke meeting that we both realised that this was something that, because I had questions but there were no answers. My doctor wasn't keen on.
I might come back to that, okay, Ava, and move on to Colin and just get him to go through some of his issues in regard to how the stroke has affected his life and what's changed.
My main deficits are left-sided weakness. I walk with a stick. I have 0 left arm, despite daily OT for months, for years actually. Significant spasticity in the left hand and wrist. 50% left leg. Poor vocal projection, as you can hear. I claim to be cognitively intact, but who knows? I have an incomplete left homonymous hemianopia. I mean, I don't see anything down there. If you want to hide, go down there. Improvement, a lot obviously. I do a lot of exercise, static bike, gym, walking, daily hand exercises. I've learned in 10 years minimal left flexion, which is of no use to me, no extension.
And has it improved and you feel your life is getting better as time goes
no
by?
No question.
Okay. So you're feeling more comfortable with how you're
I am the way I
working
am, so I mean,
okay.
I'm fine.
And you do cooking, do you not?
Yes, I demonstrate stroke cooking. If anyone has a group that wants a live demo, I did a streaming one online for the association. If you can just email the association, they'll pass it on to me. I mean, sometimes it's better to see things up close rather than watch a screen. I mean, I can cook, but I mean, this is largely prep.
Okay. So I might go on to Simon. And Simon, how has your life changed and how have your deficits improved as a result of your stroke?
Okay, sure. I work full-time. I've worked full-time my whole life. And when I was in hospital, I got told I would be quite a long while before I work again and drive. And I'll be honest, I was devastated. It really had an effect on me, but now I'm not really worried about it. So yeah, from going to working full time, and not working, that's sort of had an effect on me, but now I'm not too worried about it. In terms of now, what it affected was my memory and my organisation, and they're sort of the two main things, I think. Organisation, memory, my handwriting as well.
And is it improving over time, or?
It is, because I'm in an NDI share house and I have ongoing funding, and I have physio, hydro and OT.
Okay, so you're really into exercise and getting yourself out there and talking to people.
Trying to, yeah, and I love going to the Stroke Association meetings, and I'm really into health now because I never looked after my health, but now I know it's the most important thing.
Okay, all right. Well, going on to some of your tips, in your hospital situation, is there any tips you'd like to give the health professionals who may be in the room or online about what it was like from your position and what may have assisted you to understand your stroke more?
Sure. I think I mentioned before, there was a booklet that I got it with my social worker, and it was easy to read and easy to understand. That's where I learnt most about my stroke. Most about stroke, I didn't know anything about it. And social worker visiting me was really good. So just clear communication, yeah.
And again, not just once.
No, not just once, just over and over, yeah.
Okay, excellent. Colin, any tips that you may have for the health professionals who are
Perhaps
listening?
explain things more than once. Early on in a stroke, it's very hard to retain info that well. Post-stroke fatigue is huge early on and interferes with rehab. I fell asleep twice in the gym. I mean, pushing important very early on, but so is lots of rest.
Are you saying that the physios were quite mean to you, Colin?
No, they were fine. I wore them down, they kept leaving.
Okay. Any other tips you may have?
No, I'll just mention my stroke cooking. Anyone with a group that wants a demo, if you just let the association know, and I'll be there. Thanks.
Excellent. Ava, any tips that you may have, seeing you broke every cardinal rule?
I think to have, and I think this comes through to the stroke survivor club, I think that's the place where I got the most benefit from, sharing with others, and I lost my social skills, I lost my computer technologies, TV, all of those things, and it was through the Stroke Association, through our stroke group, that someone else shared that you sort of beat yourself because you can't. I used to be good at that, and now I can't do it. And then I think, well, that's the end of. But then there would be someone that would step up and come near me and just say, "Hey, there's help for that." And that came through the Stroke and being part of our club and getting to know each other and having close friends who just made a pact between themselves that they would help me. I didn't have that out there. That was something that came from close friends. Family, they don't understand. I think I gave us 3 months, and I also, in turn, found out, being at the club, that it's not. And in that time, that to hear that there's help. My doctor is a great doctor, but as far as stroke goes, he doesn't know too much about that.
And so that's your GP.
Yeah, that's the GP.
Yeah.
And I think when I talk to others, a lot of doctors, especially older ones, don't know about stroke, and then they're not aware of the things that Stroke Association has to offer. And I think that comes back to our clubs again. We need to get the communication out, and also I think we need to be willing to share, like about my tongue and about and my teeth. In the meantime, they've gone and whatever, and I still dribble, and I apologise for it and etc. But that's minor.
Mm-hmm.
They're minor.
Okay. Going on to you, Julie, is there any tips that you have for health professionals that may assist them in terms of providing services for stroke survivors?
I'm going to have to repeat a lot of people have said. Things need to be explained more than once, because you can only absorb so much, and it may only be a small thing, but unless it's repeated, sometimes it doesn't sink in. To be more and less honest about my perceived outcome. I believe it's more, as long as the person is accepting the more. If they're rejecting it, they may need to pressure it a bit more, but then stop it if it's creating problems itself.
Find a different way to say
Yeah.
it.
Talk to me, don't talk about me if I'm not in the room. That's a definite. They should never ever do that. But also check if they're talking to a patient, check if the patient understands and can do what you're asking of them. Now I'll give you an example of that. Back when I was in hospital and they decided I was going home, in those days at the end of the ward they had like a visiting room where people would go and sit with patients and what have you. And they said, oh, you can go home, go and ring your husband. And they had there was no mobile phones, of course, in those days. And I went to that, picked the phone up. I didn't know what to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
So I stood there with the handpiece in my hand and cried.
Yeah.
You know, and unless they're assured of what what they're talking about and if you can do it.
Yep.
Yep.
So check again and again.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Come on.
I think notes, repetitive notes, because in my hospital stay, they said something, oh, yep, and I forget it straight away. But when they have notes, I can read it in the room. Oh, okay, that makes sense. I have to read it again and again, but notes, incredible. One of the doctors said to my family, that's the best that you can get. My mum said, you don't know, come on. So I'm getting better and better every day.
Okay, excellent. Okay, then just staying with you, Kimone, if you were to talk to stroke survivors who are just starting out in this process of recovery and in acute or even rehab, what would be your tip for what would assist them and what's assisted you most in your recovery?
Stubbornness, motivation, repetition of exercises. When I was starting to explain something, I couldn't get it through, so don't worry about it, and I come back at another time and explain it a different way.
So there's more than one way to hear what a stroke
Yes,
survivor's
yeah.
saying. Yep.
And even now I said, can you explain it a different way?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So keep asking questions until
Yep.
you understand it. Take
Yep.
responsibility as well.
Yeah, you're responsible for your own actions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. Julie?
Well, of course, the repetitiveness of physical exercise, but also verbally and handwriting, the whole thing. Repetition is the most important thing initially. And being patient with yourself, yes. Don't go bash your head against a brick wall because that's not going to do anything. Mm-hmm. Join a stroke club, yes. I went with my husband and my daughter that found out about the stroke club, and I think I had the stroke in September, and I joined the club in February, because they weren't there through December and January. But encouragement, continued encouragement, and this is particularly by family and friends that you need that. And something you said reminded me. The best speech pathologist I had was my daughter, because my husband would always try to preempt what I was saying,
Right.
and he would say, "No, don't do that, Dad. Let her try it, get it out."
Yeah.
She said she may be trying to say apple, and if she can't get apple, ask her to say something else, fruit, or just something else I can get out.
Yeah.
And without her, I probably wouldn't have. And he used to walk me up to the town to get his paper, and I had two things that were really, really hard for me to say. One was Guy Lily, I don't know why, but sandstone steps. Okay. You say that a quick
If you
times.
say it quickly, none of us can say
That's
it.
right.
Yes.
So, that's a thing. And this, the one here I think it's very, very important. Value your support people. Yes, it's important for you and for them that you let them know that you value them. Mm-hmm. And also, somebody else mentioned it before too, you must have a good general practitioner. I had two very early in the piece, but we've moved, and of course, you haven't got. I think I may have found one now.
Yeah, the trick is you get a general practitioner who is good, who is younger than you, that doesn't retire. That's my trick for that one.
Yeah, but you got to remember when I was only 45 when I had mine.
That's right. They have this habit, don't they, of retiring?
That'd
doctors?
have
It's very
been.
unusual.
That'd have been if they were younger than me. That'd have been just coming out of training.
Fair enough. Ava, your tips to a stroke survivor starting out or even as part of their journey continuing? Your tip for a stroke survivor, what's the best tip you have for a stroke survivor starting out on their journey of recovery?
Oh, I think, one, it's important to get involved with a local club, a stroke survivors club. One, mainly because you have your thinking about what's ahead, and the ones, in my case, none of my people or none of my friends knew what a stroke was. And I think there was a lot of patience required, especially for my husband. I'm left with a scrambled brain and unstable emotions. And in a nutshell, that's cry at happy and laugh at sad. And not being able to do certain things. And I have anger. And sometimes that comes out. That's what's not so. I've been told. I was told then that that's not sociably acceptable, and I wasn't even aware that I was doing those sort of things. So when that happens to you at a shop or church or when you're visiting family, that's very. I wasn't embarrassed because I wasn't aware. But then when I started to become aware, I was glad that someone was good enough to step next to me and just say, Ava, you're doing things that are unacceptable. And at first I did. I'd argue. But then when I started to realise that that was happening, I was so thankful that I had friends who encouraged me, and especially in the stroke group. There was others that were experiencing similar. And once I shared, they'd assist me. And I think that's the important thing. We need to be who you are. Okay. If that's who I was, I'm still struggling. If that's who I've become, I can get better, and we are, and there are improvements. So I think the biggest thing is really when we have a new member come, and when you first go, like I was never going to go back to that stroke meeting because I just wasn't that bad. But then when I came back the next time, there were other things that were difficult for me. And this is where we can see it in each other. And 3 months is not very long when it comes to stroke recovery. I'm 9, it'll be 10 years this year. That's long, and I'm still in it. It's still an ongoing journey. And I think that's something that is still a shock.
You need to give yourself time. And you're expecting you was expecting to get back to normal early, and you've realised that it's a long lifetime.
And I heard the neurologist say, I expect a full recovery. Now,
and then you hear a full recovery and you think it's a full recovery.
Well, I had an appendicitis operation. I was better within 2 weeks. So I could drive in 6. So that's how my mind works. In turn, the things that are available, that blows me away. I've lost my skills for computer and technology. And I'd like to say this, through the referrals that we get through our paperwork, etc., and doing computer course again, the repetition, being told that if you stop, you'll lose what you've been doing, and that is true. So I just say, whatever you start to do, you don't know when the end's there, when your brain gets it. I have had things that the brain gets, and I'd like to say repetition, repetition, repetition. Okay, and when you're tired, just keep going.
Colin, because I'm running out of time. Right. Sorry. Go, Colin. Yeah.
So is this the expected outcomes?
Sorry, closer to your mouth.
Expected outcomes. Expected outcomes, no.
Yep.
Well,
so
when you first have a stroke, your brain is so swollen and whatever. Whatever rehab you're offered, grab it with one hand, And, sorry, vocal projection's rubbish. You've got to substitute your exercises. Pre-stroke, I was a pretty keen cyclist, a couple 100k a week, ran 25. But now I go to a normal gym supervised with help, about 30k on an adaptive bike, walk 3k. So you've got to lower your sights big time. Thanks.
Thank you. And very quickly,
Yep.
I know that's hard for you. So.
I know it is because I talk underwater, I've been told. I think the main thing was for me in hospital when I get out is maintain a positive attitude and never give up. Like stroke doesn't kill you, it's changed our life, it hasn't ended our life. So don't give up.
Okay. Well, that's a very good point to end on. So I'd like to very quickly summarise. So the important thing that I think our group have pointed out today is they're all from different stages of their stroke. They all had different types of stroke and they all reacted to their stroke quite differently. But I guess the themes that come through is that whole issue of perseverance. Good medical care, I think, is important, and as early as possible, okay? And making sure that you do connect with people. Who that people are is up to you. It may be a stroke club, but it may be other groups within the community that suit you even more. But linking in with other people and getting support from other people is really important. The other one I think that came out again and again was repetition. And that goes for both what we're told, we need to hear it more than once, but also in our exercises and our recovery therapies, we need to do the treatments that we're given, and we also need to do them several times, not just once. But the other message that I think we've got this morning is that it has been a journey for people, but they've done it very well and they've come a long way. So it's not a static thing. You may not get back to full recovery as we perceive full recovery, but you are going to get back to a great quality of life with your family and your friends. Is that a good summary for you?
Yes. Can I make a comment on that one?
Sure.
To everybody here that's had a stroke, it doesn't matter whether you had your stroke yesterday, 10, 15 years ago. There's always improvement. It may be slow, but if you keep working at it, there will be an improvement.
Well, please join me, ladies and gentlemen, in thanking our wonderful group today. Timone Haddon, Julie Wright, Ava Dezou, Colin Silk and Simon Bridge. And thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed that session this morning.